So Ed, it's no secret you've been critical of surveys over time, and could you expand on maybe the front end of this discussion on where you see they may fit, or where you feel they should not be used?
Going back to the definition of culture as being the historically learned way of doing things and the way of feeling about things, culture from the observer's, ethnographer's point of view covers all of life. Therefore, the a priori survey doesn't make any sense to me because you wouldn't know what to ask. A survey requires you to define a set of items, and as I encounter a culture, until I've talked to a lot of people in a lot of groups, I wouldn't have any idea of what a survey might look like that would be relevant to that particular organization in its particular situation. So that's why I think an upfront statement that I have a complete culture survey just doesn't make sense. Culture is too broad. However, I'm very respectful of surveys that have taken what we do know about individual and group behavior and how organizational systems work and said, okay, we can build surveys from theory. And we even know a lot about what works better and worse in organizations. So if a survey is built on what we think we know is generally true, and we've looked at the problem that this organization has, then I can see a complete reason to say, well then let's look at some general surveys that will enlarge your perspective on your problem. You'll be exposed to a whole bunch of dimensions that may or may not relate to whether you can improve the situation that you have. Some of those dimensions will indeed be irrelevant, others will be central, but you'll have more to work with. Now, that survey then would have had to be developed on a theory basis rather than just as a catch-can basis. And as I understand it, that's precisely the strength of the surveys that you've developed, is that they're more likely to fit because they're based on earlier theory of organizations.
Thank you. What do you have to add to that discussion about the value and where it fits versus where it doesn't fit?
I think the most important thing is that even when we restrict our survey to just behavioral norms and expectations, we're actually very careful to say that the organizational culture inventory measures some of the behaviors that might be expected within organizations, and which can have either functional or dysfunctional consequences. I don't think we pretend to measure the entire array of behaviors that might come up in organizations, including in certain cases, the most important ones. But we have a pretty good conceptual framework with 3 distinct factors, 3 distinct types of cultures and related behaviors, constructive, passive, and aggressive. And I do feel we do a pretty good job at measuring those. What we need, though, and what I like to see consultants do, is to add to the survey before it's administered, and to do so in an informed way on the basis of their discussions, on the basis of the questions they've asked, to see if there are additional behaviors that are particularly relevant to the organization where the survey is being administered, and where we can add them in to the OCI. We have a specific section for doing that. As a result of that kind of survey, part standardized, part customized, the organization really gets great feedback. They get some feedback where it's standardized, they can compare their results to other organizations, plus they get feedback that is specifically tailored to the kinds of behaviors, the kinds of norms that may be critical for solving problems, making large changes and the like.